Yo, 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 people and patrons of the night. It is your boy, the Horrorlander, aka the Horror Hero. I am back today for a very special short story review because this short story is authored by a famous kids horror slash book collector YouTuber, and one that's very near and dear to my heart because I watch his videos all the time. And if there was a book collection slash library that I was jealous of, it'd be this dude. Because if I had his collection, I would never leave my house. I mean, I never leave my house as is. If I had this dude's house, you'd call me the Hermit of Chicago. That is none other than Cameron Chaney at the Library Macabre. And the short story collection of which this story comes from is called Autumncrow. Autumncrow is essentially a short story collection that features all fall-related and basically Halloween-related short stories. And although October is finished, although Halloween is very sadly over, it is still the fall, it is still autumn, and I feel that some of the short stories in this collection still fit the need for a read during this month. And I decided, hey man, I got to read a very good short story from this collection, one of the first ones on there, and I decided, you know what, might as well make a review for you guys. Without further ado, let's go into the review. But of course, it wouldn't be one of my videos without an unneeded, unnecessary, and yet absolutely flamboyant introduction. Hit the intro.
Put your hands together, cover your eyes. Getting ready for a big surprise. Spirits in a bottle, ghosts in the machine, walking on water.
Autumncrow is essentially a town where Halloween is forever. This is basically a pseudo-Halloween town, but slightly more grounded. Not everybody there is a monster, a ghoul, or fiend. You're not going to see your dad claiming to be a ghost, which explains why he disappeared out on you several years ago when he went to the gas station. You're not going to see your mother as a Sasquatch, which makes her beating you with the chancla all the more worse for your physical, mental, and emotional health. And you're not going to see your girlfriend all of a sudden break the news to you that she's actually a succubus. Actually, that one hits more in reality than I'd like it to be. Felicia, why? But what you are going to see is that everybody's within the Halloween spirit. I mean, spooky, scary, and weird things happen at this town all the time. It embodies autumn, all right? You got caramel apples, you got pumpkin patches, you got giant rows of cornfields. You got all the stuff that you would want in the fall season, and especially with the spooky vibes of Halloween. So with this short story collection, you're able to get some insights. You're able to find out a little bit more about the citizens of this town, some of the weird paranormal things that they deal with, and that's what each of the stories are, I guess, supposed to be based off of. I haven't read the entire book. I just got to read this short story, and it got me so hyped that I decided I might as well make a review on it. Pumpkin Light is essentially about this older woman who is a citizen of Autumncrow, and she has this little girl who ended up on her doorstep during this Halloween night. She's dressed up, excited to get some candy, and she ends up striking a conversation with this older lady. And as she starts speaking to this older lady, this woman decides to tell the little girl a story, which actually is a flashback to a very pivotal moment during her life back when she was a young girl on the Halloween night of 1953. During this night, you find out that the older woman happens to live in a more rural section of Autumncrow. She doesn't live directly where the town is, and life back in the day was a lot more different compared to the more hustling and bustling setting of the modern age with a lot more tourists, a lot more buildings, a lot more technology. Back in 1953, when she was a little girl, the entire basically Autumncrow life that she knew about was school in the town being a far walk away from her home. She would have to go through what felt like miles of cornfields with just dangerous packs of coyotes around, and anything could happen to a young child back then when there wasn't the communication and technology capabilities there is nowadays. So her parents decide, you know what, instead of us letting you walk all the way to Autumncrow's town to go celebrate the Halloween festival and trick or treat with your friends, instead we're just gonna drive you there, just for safety reasons. So the girl decides to agree on that, and as she's waiting outside for her parents to get ready and take her into downtown of Autumncrow, she ends up noticing something really strange, and that's that her neighbor's house Mrs. Cartwright, who happens to be a woman that has a lot of urban legend and, weird lore behind her. People claim that she might be a witch. They say that she's a very strange old lady and that she might be working with black magic and witchcraft and things of that nature behind the scenes with her own pumpkin patch field that her and her husband run and let kids go to every single Halloween to get some fresh pumpkins. She sees something weird in this pumpkin patch during this night, and that's that there is a scarecrow out in the middle of this pumpkin patch with a pure white pumpkin head and this green, ominous, glowing light emanating from the jack-o'-lantern head that makes up the dome of the scarecrow. And this is really, really odd to her. She's never seen something this strange before. And she does have some preconceived notions. Again, there's the urban legends about this older lady. Her husband unfortunately passed away just a couple months before this Halloween night of 1953. And people claim that the older lady might have chopped him up and used him in ingredients for her baking. But the more common consensus is that she actually cremated her husband and spread his ashes all along the entire pumpkin field as a way to show her love and to show the dedication he had towards that pumpkin patch that he grew every single year. So she ends up getting entranced by this scarecrow, by this weird glowing jack-o'-lantern. And as she walks towards it and she approaches it, she sees something quite horrifying. She sees that there are actually these sentient, what seems to be ever-growing vines sprouting from the ground, crawling up the legs and torso of this scarecrow and basically forming a body, forming hands and arms where there are none on this scarecrow, and what seems to be making it into some type of creature. And this scares her, this freaks her out. On top of that, this pure white pumpkin is absolutely abnormal. She's heard stories from the older lady, Mrs. Cartwright, saying that there are these pumpkins who happen to grow underground, of which they call them ghost pumpkins. And all of a sudden she realizes that she might have bit off more than she can chew. And going into this pumpkin field on this late Halloween night was probably not a good idea. And all of a sudden you see that Mrs. Cartwright then appears in front of the little girl and tells her how happy she is to see this phenomenon, how happy she is to see this little girl actually in her pumpkin patch and her house right now, because she has some special plans. She apparently has some plans for the little girl, because on tonight of Halloween night of 1953, Mrs. Cartwright knows that she's going to pass away tonight. She feels her life force draining away. She feels very sick and ill, and she decides that she has a way to connect with her husband and connect with her absolute beloved hubby in one of the most disturbing and horrific ways possible. Because of course, true love is true love, even if it's a giant jack-o'-lantern scarecrow demon. Yeah, love will make you do crazy, crazy things. So that's when the main character realizes that this lady, Mrs. Cartwright, might have actually been performing some black magic. And let's just say that Mrs. Cartwright might have a way to connect with her husband with the festivities of Halloween right now. And she has to do it before she passes away. It's time. She doesn't want to pass away alone and in sorrow. She wants to experience the happiness, the joy of her life one more moment before it all goes away. And you get this quite morbidly beautiful yet scary and disturbing story. There are some creepy scenes throughout this short story, especially when the main character, Mrs. Cartwright, actually enter the old barn on the property of which her husband happened to keep his supplies in. And when the main character and Mrs. Cartwright enter into this barn, you see all these ominous, eerie looking jack-o'-lanterns, dozens of them, posted up on hay bales, hanging from the ceiling like ornaments. And the main character claims that she can hear them giggling like little children, and she doesn't know if that's her mind playing tricks on her, is it the wind rustling through the open wooden planks of this old decrepit barn, or are they actually sentient? Are they actually alive? That is some horrifying, creepy stuff. The scenes of the Scarecrow in this short story often remind me of Goosebumps, The Scarecrow Walks at Midnight, and some of those similar feelings come to play when you find out about witchcraft and spells trying to bring stuff to life, which is prominent throughout that story as well. The visuals of this jack-o'-lantern pumpkin head monster reminded me of the Pumpkinheads, alright? The idea of sentient vines, some creepy imagery involving jack-o'-lanterns, that's some of the vibes that it gives off. And you also have a feeling of the movie Monster House, where this horrifying, disturbing scene, this creepy entity, happens to involve more of an emotional bond between lovers. A deeper, more morbidly emotional story hidden behind that scary, disturbing factor and imagery that you get.
Mr. Nevercracker! I know about Constance.
What? What do you know? You don't know anything.
So overall, this scary short story I think embodies autumn very, very well. It's got some great imagery, it's got a great setting. Cameron Chaney's writing is actually quite good. It immerses you really well into the short story, and I really enjoyed this tale. Again, it embodies Halloween, it embodies the fall, and a lot of the best things that I enjoy about fall horror stories, specifically with those 3 pieces of media, is pretty much paid homage to in this short story. So I think this is a great one for you guys to go check out and read. I cannot wait to read more of this Autumncrow book and eventually get my hands on Autumncrow High. Now, of course, I was not paid to review this book. I know it's a fellow YouTuber that I'm covering, but I'm always honest, I'm always blunt, and I'm not getting sponsored for this one. Although Cameron Chaney, if you want to slip me some moolah, some quick dinero, I'm never going to turn that down. But yeah, man, this short story is actually genuinely good, and I think that if you guys want to embody within the atmosphere, the feeling of this time of the month, you should definitely pick up this book and especially read this short story right away. That's all I got for today. Overall, I would rate this short story a 9 out of 10. It gets an A, and I would definitely reread this if I get the chance later on during future Halloweens and future fall months, because again, it's just that perfect mascot for that time of the year. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and comment down below. Helps me out with pushing these videos into the algorithm, connecting more with you guys, and building up the community. It's a free way to support me and lets me know you guys are engaged and like the content. And let me ask you, have you read the short story collection Autumncrow before? Do you have plans on checking it out? And what are some of your favorite fall, October, November horror stories? And what are some things that you possibly might want me to cover later on during this month, despite my very busy schedule as finals are approaching? That's all I got for today. Deuces. And don't worry about my ex being a succubus. I got an exorcism planned out for that bitch.